Hello students, it's Pokemon Professor Maple here, and today we're going to be talking about starter types. Traditionally, the starters that have been given out to youngsters everywhere have been Grass, Fire, and Water. These three types make an excellent introduction to type effectiveness. Grass is super effective against Water, which is super effective against Fire, which is super effective against Grass. Grass is resisted by Fire, which is resisted by Water, which is resisted by Grass. In both directions, all three types are symmetrical, which means none of the starters are best. Today I wanted to explore how many of the 816 possible combinations of three starter types could provide the same relationship. Starting with those that have the identical relationship to the original starters, we have Grass, Ground, Poison, Fire, Steel, Rock, and probably the most interesting of the bunch, because it shares no types with the originals, Flying, Fighting, Rock. And surprisingly, these four type combinations are the only ones that share this relationship. However, that's not the only way we could get a starter trio. We could also look for three types that offensively are super effective against each other, but defensively are only neutral against each other. This relationship is even more rare than the original kind, as most types that are super effective against another type do also resist that type. However, this does give us a fifth type combination in Grass, Rock, and Ice. Another degree of symmetry we can look for are Pokemon that are offensively neutral against each other, and defensively resisted against each other. This gives us Water Steel Dragon, Electric Steel Dragon, and Electric Steel Grass. These 8 type combinations are the only type combinations in which both the offense and the defense is perfectly symmetrical. Unless of course we look for 3 completely neutral types like Rock, Ghost, Fairy, of which there is 95 combinations, but those aren't particularly interesting. Let's not be so picky that we absolutely demand symmetry. Let's just have Type A be super effective against Type B, which is super effective against Type C, which is super effective against Type A, and not worry too much about what the defenses are doing. For example, we have Fire, Grass, Ground. This one isn't quite as symmetrical as the original options, as Ground does not actually resist Fire, but it's still pretty good. We also have Fire, Grass, Rock. What's quite interesting here is that all 3 types that are weak to Grass are also super effective against Fire. Grass, Fire, Water, Grass, Fire, Rock, and Grass, Fire, Ground are all valid starter trios. Moving along, we have Fire, Ice, Ground, Water, Ground, Electric, Grass, Rock, Flying, Grass, Rock, Bug, which is notably the only inclusion of the bug type we're going to see in this list. We have Ice, Ground, Rock, Ice, Ground, Steel, and Ice, Flying, Fighting. Next up we have what seems to be most people's favorite alternative starter type combination in Fighting, Dark, Psychic. I think the reason this type combination comes up so often is the Kalos region starters' final evolutions gain these typings. Also, both this type triangle and the original type triangle can exist on Pokemon at the same time without interfering with each other at all. And the last one that meets our current requirements is Fighting Steel Fairy. We could keep going for more starter combinations where the offense is not symmetrical, such as Fighting Dark Ghost, but I think we have plenty of options already. This discussion has also so far only looked at starters where all 3 starters only have a single type. If we were allowed to select dual-type Pokemon, then there would be 425,340 combinations of 3 Pokemon that do not share any types. This is far too many options to go over by hand, so I headed over to the lab to run a quick script. And by quick, I mean having to manually enter the entire type effectiveness chart into my code 1 cell at a time. This was great fun, I assure you. Anyway, the code returned over 37,000 options, which is more than enough for every region in the world to use unique combinations. This is far too many options to discuss in this video, but I will shout out my favorite option from the list. Grass Dark, Rock Ground, and Bug Flying. All 3 Pokemon in this type combination are doubly super effective against their neighbor. Grass is super effective against Rock and Ground, Rock is super effective against Bug and Flying, and Bug is super effective against Grass and Dark. Anyway, today we've learned there are more type combinations than we could ever possibly need. That's all for today. Tune into next video where I see if I can make the starter types go backwards.